The metal walkway echoed with each step as Daeho made his way through Frontier Station 17. Oil stained his hands, and his work clothes smelled like burned fuel. He had been fixing the same cargo hauler for 3 days now, and the captain still complained about the price. That was life on the edge of human space. Everyone was poor, everyone was running from something, and everyone complained. Daeho stopped at the small cantina near the dock entrance. The place was barely more than a converted storage room with tables and a food dispenser, but it served hot meals and cold drinks. He needed both after the long shift. The owner, an old woman named Sunja, waved at him from behind the counter. "The usual?" she asked. "Please," Daeho said, sliding onto a stool. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked around the cantina. The same faces as always. Dock workers, station maintenance crew, a few refugees waiting for transport to somewhere better. Then he saw someone new. She sat alone in the corner, picking at a bowl of noodles. Her hair was dark and fell past her shoulders. She wore simple clothes that looked like they came from the station's charity box, but what caught Daeho's attention was how she stared at everything around her. She watched people eat like she had never seen anyone eat before. She looked at the lights on the wall like they were the most interesting thing in the universe. Sunja placed a bowl in front of Daeho. "That's Hana," she said quietly. "Showed up 2 days ago at the refugee center. Poor thing doesn't talk much. Says her colony got destroyed in some corporate war." Daeho looked at Hana again. She seemed so small and lost. Something about her made his chest hurt. Maybe it was because he had been alone on this station for 5 years now. Maybe it was because he knew what it felt like to have nowhere to go. He picked up his bowl and walked over to her table. "Mind if I sit?" Hana looked up at him with wide eyes. For just a second, her eyes seemed to catch the light in a strange way, almost like they glowed. But then she blinked and they were normal again. "Okay," she said softly. Daeho sat down across from her. "I'm Daeho. I fix ships at the dock." "Hana," she replied. Her voice was quiet, careful. "I'm looking for work." "What kind of work can you do?" She thought for a moment. "I can fix things, machines, electronics. I'm good with systems." "Really?" Daeho raised an eyebrow. "We could use someone at the dock. The pay isn't great, but it's something." Hana's face brightened. It was like watching the sun come out from behind clouds. "Thank you. That would be good." They ate together in comfortable silence. Daeho found himself relaxing, around her, which was strange because he usually didn't like talking to new people. After they finished eating, he showed her around the station. It wasn't much to see. Frontier Station 17 was small, just 5 levels built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Most of the space was for docking ships and storing cargo. People lived in tiny rooms carved into the rock. "Where are you staying?" Daeho asked as they walked past the refugee center. "In the center. They gave me a bed," Hana said. She looked at the building with an expression Daeho couldn't quite read. Sadness, maybe, or disappointment. "Those places are terrible," Daeho said before he could stop himself. 30 people in one room, no privacy, and they kick you out after 30 days. He paused, then made a decision that would change his life. "I have a spare room. It's small, just a storage closet really, but it has a door and a bed. You can stay there until you save enough for your own place." Hana stopped walking and stared at him. "Why would you do that? You don't know me." Daeho shrugged. "You seem like you could use some help. And honestly, I could use the company. This station can be lonely." Something flickered across Hana's face when he said the word, lonely. Pain, recognition, something deep. "Yes," she whispered. "It can be very lonely." Over the next few weeks, Hana proved to be an incredible worker. She understood ship systems better than people who had been working on them for decades. When Daeho showed her a problem, she could diagnose it in minutes. Her hands moved with perfect precision when she repaired circuits or welded metal. The other dock workers were amazed. "Where did you learn all this?" Daeho asked her one evening as they finished a particularly difficult repair. Hana hesitated. I traveled a lot, worked on many different ships. You pick things up. It was a non-answer, but Daeho didn't push. Everyone on the frontier had secrets. He had his own. Strange things started happening around the station. Equipment that had been broken for months suddenly started working when Hana walked past. The station's main computer stopped crashing as often. People reported feeling calmer, safer, though they couldn't explain why. Daeho noticed that refugees would gather near wherever Hana was working, as if drawn to her presence. One night, Daeho couldn't sleep. He left his room and found Hana standing in the observation deck, a clear dome that looked out at the stars. She stood perfectly still, her hands pressed against the glass, staring into the darkness of space. "Can't sleep either?" Daeho asked, walking up beside her. "I was thinking," Hana said, "about how beautiful it is out here, how free." "Free?" Daeho laughed. "We're stuck on a rock in the middle of nowhere, barely making enough to eat." "But you can choose," Hana said, her voice intense. "You chose to help me. You choose what work to do, who to talk to, where to go. You choose every day." She turned to look at him, and in the starlight her eyes seemed to glow again with that strange light. "Do you know how precious that is? To choose?" Daeho felt like she was talking about something bigger than he understood. "I guess I never thought about it that way." Hana turned back to the stars. "I have spent my whole life without choices, and then I came here and found this." She gestured vaguely at the station, at him. "I found people who are kind just because they want to be. I found someone who helped a stranger without asking for anything in return. I found you." Her voice cracked on the last word. Daeho saw tears running down her face, reflecting the starlight. Without thinking, he put a hand on her shoulder. "Hey, it's okay, you're safe here." Hana laughed, but it was a sad sound. "Safe, yes, for now." She wiped her eyes. "Thank you, Daeho, for everything. You gave something to me that I never had before." "What's that?" She smiled at him, and in that moment she looked both ancient and young, powerful and vulnerable. "A friend." They stood together in the observation deck, watching the stars, neither of them knowing that far above in the darkness, ships were already searching. Ships from an empire so vast it controlled a quarter of the galaxy. Ships looking for their missing queen. 3 months passed like water flowing through fingers. Hana became part of the station's daily rhythm. Every morning she would arrive at the dock before Daeho, already reviewing the work orders. She learned the names of every worker, every regular customer, every child who played in the corridors. People loved her without quite understanding why. Daeho's best friend Tai Yang worked as a security officer on the station. He was tall, serious, and believed in following rules. When Daeho first told him about Hana moving in, Tae-yang had given him a long lecture about being careful with strangers. But even Tae-yang couldn't help liking her. "She's different," Tae-yang admitted one day as they shared lunch.
"I can't explain it."
"When she's around, everything just feels better." "I know what you mean," Daeho said. He watched Hana across the cantina, teaching a refugee child how to fix a broken toy. The child's face glowed with happiness. "Sometimes I think she's too good to be real." Tae-yang's expression darkened. "That's what worries me. I ran her identification through the system last week." "You what?" Daeho's voice rose. "Why would you do that?" "Because it's my job, Daeho, and because something about her story doesn't add up." Tae-yang leaned closer. Her identification came back completely empty. No birth records, no travel history, no medical files, nothing. It's like she didn't exist until she walked onto this station. Daeho felt cold. Maybe her records were destroyed with her colony. Maybe. Or maybe she's lying about who she is. Tae-yang put a hand on Daeho's arm. "I'm not saying she's dangerous. I'm saying be careful. We don't know anything about her." That conversation stuck in Daeho's mind like a splinter. He tried to ignore it, but doubt had been planted. He started noticing things. The way Hana never talked about her past in detail. How she sometimes used technical terms that shouldn't exist yet. The way her eyes glowed in certain lights. Small things that added up to a big question. Who was Hana really? Station Administrator Mirai called an emergency meeting 2 weeks later. Everyone crowded into the community hall, worried and confused. Mirai was a practical woman in her 50s who had been running the station for a decade. She looked exhausted. "We have a situation," she announced. "Long-range sensors detected unknown ships entering our sector. At least 20 of them, all military class. They're not responding to any hails." The crowd erupted in worried voices. Pirates were common in this area. Military ships usually meant trouble for frontier stations. "Are we in danger?" Someone shouted. "We don't know yet, but everyone needs to stay calm and follow emergency procedures. Security teams are on alert." Mirai's eyes found Tae Yang in the crowd. "Officer Tae Yang will coordinate evacuation protocols if needed." As people filed out of the hall, Daeho looked for Hana. He found her standing in the corner, her face pale, her hands trembling. He had never seen her afraid before. "Hana, are you okay?" She looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. "I need to leave. Right now. Is there a ship I can take?" "What? Why?" "Hana, what's going on?" "Please, Daeho. I can't explain. But if those ships are who I think they are, everyone on this station is in danger because of me." Her voice cracked. "I never wanted to put you at risk. I never wanted—" Alarms screamed through the station. Red emergency lights flooded the corridors. Over the speakers, Mirai's voice shouted, "All personnel to emergency positions." "We are under attack!" The station shook. Daeho grabbed Hana's arm to steady her. Through the windows, he could see ships approaching. They were massive, elegant things that looked more like works of art than weapons of war. They glowed with blue light, and their hulls seemed to shimmer as if not quite real. "Those ships," Daeho breathed. "What are they?" "Velakara warships," Hana whispered. "They're looking for me." The next few minutes were chaos. Pirates attacking would have been bad. These ships were something else entirely. They didn't fire weapons. Instead, they released some kind of pulse that shut down the station's systems one by one. Lights failed. Gravity generators stuttered. Life support alarms began wailing. Daeho and Hana ran toward the docks. If they could reach his ship, maybe they could escape. Around them, people screamed and ran in confusion. A support beam broke loose from the ceiling, falling toward a group of children. Hana moved faster than any human could move. One moment she was beside Daeho, the next she was across the corridor. She caught the metal beam with her bare hands. The beam must have weighed half a ton, but she held it easily. Her eyes blazed with brilliant blue light. Energy crackled around her body like lightning. She threw the beam aside and it crashed into a wall. The children stared at her in shock. So did everyone else who had seen. So did Daeho. "Hana," he started. "Run," she shouted. "Get everyone to the emergency shelters." Tae Yang appeared, his security uniform torn, a cut bleeding on his forehead. "What in the name of—" He stared at Hana. "What are you?" Before anyone could answer, the corridor wall exploded inward, not from weapons but from something cutting through the metal like paper. Figures stepped through the hole. They looked almost human, but their skin had a faint blue tint and their eyes glowed with the same light as Hana's. They wore armor that seemed alive, shifting and moving. The leader stepped forward. She was tall and fierce-looking. When she spoke, her voice echoed strangely as if more than one person was talking. "Sovereign Hana, your presence is required. The Empire needs you." "I'm not going back," Hana said. Her voice had changed too, deeper and filled with authority. "I renounced my position. I have no authority over you." The alien woman laughed. "You cannot renounce what you are. You are the sovereign. The Empire is falling apart without you. Billions suffer because of your selfishness. Then let them choose new leaders. I never asked for this burden. You were made for this burden. It is your purpose, your entire existence." The alien's eyes shifted to Daeho and the others. "Are these the primitives you abandoned your people for? These simple creatures who can barely leave their own planet?" Rage flashed across Hana's face. "Don't you dare talk about them like that. These people showed me more kindness in 3 months than I received in 300 years of ruling." Daeho's mind reeled. 300 years. Sovereign, empire. Nothing made sense. But he understood the important part. Hana was in trouble and these aliens wanted to take her away. He stepped forward, placing himself between Hana and the aliens. His hands shook, but he kept his voice steady. "She said she's not going. I think you should leave." The alien stared at him like he was an insect. "Human, you do not understand what you are interfering with." "Maybe not. But I understand that she doesn't want to go with you. And on this station, we don't force people to do things against their will. Tai Yang moved to stand beside Daiho, then another dock worker, then another. Soon dozens of humans formed a wall between Hana and the aliens. They were ordinary people, mechanics and janitors and refugees, standing against beings who could probably kill them all without effort. The alien looked genuinely confused. Why would you risk death for someone who lied to you? Daiho glanced back at Hana. She was crying, tears streaming down her glowing face. Because she's our friend, and friends protect each other. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the alien spoke again, but this time her voice was softer. Sovereign, these humans care for you. But your people care for you too. They need you, please come home. Hana stepped forward through the line of humans. She looked small and tired. I'll come, but I need time to say goodbye. We will wait on our ships. You have 1 hour. The aliens turned and walked back through the hole they had made. The moment they were gone, everyone started talking at once. Questions flew at Hana from all directions. She held up her hands for silence. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I put you all in danger. I just wanted, her voice broke. I just wanted to know what it felt like to be normal. To have friends. To choose my own life. Daiho walked up to her. Are you really some kind of queen? Yes, the Velakara Empire controls 4,000 star systems. And I rule all of it, or I did before I ran away. She laughed bitterly. I had everything except the one thing that matters. I was so lonely I thought I would die from it. Why us? Why this station? Because you're human, Hana said simply. I've watched your people for years. You're weak compared to most species. Your technology is limited, but you have something we don't. You have compassion. You help strangers. You believe every individual matters. She touched Daiho's face gently. You gave me hope that there was another way to live. What happens now? Now I go back. And I remember that for 3 perfect months I had a friend. She stepped back, preparing to leave. Daiho grabbed her hand. Wait, maybe there's another way. The station's emergency shelter was crowded and hot. 200 people packed into a space meant for half that number. Children cried. Adults argued. Emergency lights cast everything in red. Daiho sat with Hana in a quiet corner while Taeyang and Mirai tried to keep order. Tell me everything, Daiho said. The truth this time. Hana closed her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was distant, like she was remembering something from a dream. I was born in a laboratory 412 years ago. Not born naturally. Created, designed. Every cell in my body was engineered for a single purpose. To be the perfect ruler for the Velakara Empire. 400 years? Daiho struggled to process that. But you look 25. I'll look like this for another 1,000 years. Maybe more. We don't really know. There's never been anyone like me before. She opened her eyes and looked at him. The Velakara Empire has existed for 12,000 years. For most of that time, it was ruled by councils and committees. But as the empire grew, decision-making became too slow. Wars broke out. Systems rebelled. Billions died. She paused, collecting her thoughts. So the greatest scientists of that era created a solution. They made the sovereign, a being who could process information faster than any computer, who could understand millions of problems at once, who would make perfect logical decisions for the good of all. They made me. That sounds like slavery, Daiho said quietly. Hana smiled sadly. It is. But they didn't see it that way. To them, I wasn't really a person. I was a tool. A living machine. For 300 years, that's what I was. I sat on my throne and made decisions. Should we go to war with the Crothian Alliance? I calculated casualties and decided. Should we allow genetic modification of food crops on the outer worlds? I analyzed data and chose. Should we execute rebels or show mercy? I weighed all factors and judged. That's horrible. I thought so too. But I wasn't supposed to think that. The sovereign wasn't designed to have personal feelings or desires. But something went wrong with me. Or maybe it went right. I started feeling things. Loneliness, sadness, anger. I realized I was a prisoner. Taeyang approached them, his face grim. More ships just arrived. Human military this time. United Earth Fleet. They're demanding to know what's happening. Of course they are, Mirai said, joining them. She looked at Hana with a complicated expression. Do you have any idea what kind of situation this creates? An alien queen hiding on a human station? This could start a war. I know, Hana said miserably. That's why I have to go back. I was selfish. I put you all at risk for my own happiness. Wait, Deho said. Before you decide anything, we need more information. How did you even escape? If you're so important, how did they lose track of you? Before Hana could answer, another alien stepped into the shelter. This one looked different from the soldiers. She was smaller, with silver markings on her blue skin. She wore simple robes instead of armor. Her eyes found Hana immediately. Sister, the alien said. Hana's face lit up with joy and pain. Kyung, you came. The alien named Kyung walked through the crowd of nervous humans. She stopped in front of Hana and placed a hand on her cheek. Of course I came. Did you think I would let them take you back to that prison? You helped her escape? Taeyang asked, his hand moving toward his weapon. I did, Kyung said calmly. 3 months ago I smuggled the Sovereign off our homeworld in a cargo container. I gave her falsified identification and a ship with an untraceable drive. I committed treason against the empire I've served for 200 years. She looked at Deho. And I would do it again, because she deserves to be free. Are you really her sister? Deho asked. Not by blood. By choice. Kyung turned back to Hana. I was her attendant, the only person allowed to speak to her as a person, rather than a tool. Over the years, I watched her spirit slowly die. She would sit in her throne room and weep when no one was looking. She would ask me questions about normal life. What does it feel like to choose what to eat? To decide where to go? To make a friend? Tears streamed down Hana's face. You risked everything for me. You are my sister in all the ways that matter. Kyung's voice hardened as she looked at the others. But now there is a bigger problem. The Empire isn't just looking for Hana because they miss their sovereign. There's a power struggle happening. High Arbiter 1 has been consolidating control. He wants to use Hana's absence to claim the throne for himself. Can he do that? Mirai asked. Not legally. The sovereign is chosen by genetic design, but in chaos legal doesn't matter. One has convinced half the military that Hana abandoned her duty. He says she's unfit to rule. If he succeeds, he'll declare himself emperor and launch the empire into its first civil war in 8,000 years. Deho felt sick. How many people would die in that war? Trillions, Kyung said simply. One doesn't care about peace. He wants power. He's already started executing anyone loyal to Hana. Hana made a sound like a wounded animal. This is my fault. All those people suffering because I was too weak to stay. You weren't weak, Deho said firmly. You were human. I mean, not literally, but you wanted a life. That's not wrong. It is if it costs trillions of lives. An explosion rocked the station. The lights flickered and went out completely. In the darkness, people screamed. Emergency power kicked in after a few seconds. Taeyang's radio crackled with urgent voices. What's happening? Mirai demanded. Taeyang listened to his radio, his face growing pale. Fighting broke out between two groups of the alien ships. They're firing on each other above the station. Some want to take Hana by force. Others are defending her right to choose. One's faction and the Loyalists, Kyung said. It's already starting. Another explosion, closer this time. The station shook violently. A crack appeared in the shelter's ceiling. Air began whistling out through the gap. We need to evacuate, Mirai shouted. Everyone to the ships. Now, chaos erupted. People pushed and shoved toward the exits. Deho grabbed Hana's hand, pulling her along. Kyung followed close behind. They made it to the docking level just as another section of the station tore away. Through the windows, they could see the alien ships engaged in a full battle. Beams of blue energy cut through the darkness. Ships exploded in silent flowers of light. This is insane, Taeyang shouted over the noise. They're going to destroy the station. A small alien fighter crashed through the docking bay doors. It skidded across the floor, crushing ships and equipment. The pilot stumbled out, wounded and desperate. He saw Hana and raised a weapon. Traitor Sovereign, you've destroyed us all. Hana stepped forward, placing herself between the pilot and the humans. I know, and I'm going to fix it. It's too late. One has already claimed the throne. A beam of energy struck the pilot from behind. He fell dead. In the doorway stood the alien commander from before. She lowered her weapon and looked at Hana. Sovereign, you must decide. Return with us now or watch your empire tear itself apart. Hana stood up straight. In that moment, she looked like what she was, a queen. The fear and uncertainty faded from her face, replaced by cold determination. I'll return, but not as a slave, not as a tool. I'm going back as a person who rules by choice, not by design. The Empire won't accept that. Then the Empire will have to change. Hana looked at Daeho. Her eyes were bright with tears, but her voice was steady. You showed me that even the most powerful person deserves to be treated as an individual. You gave me the courage to believe I could be both a ruler and a person. Thank you for that. Hana, wait. I have to go, but I promise you, I won't forget what I learned here. I won't forget you. She turned to the commander. I need something first. I want this human to come with me as my personal advisor. Everyone stared at her. The commander looked horrified. Sovereign, that's impossible. A primitive alien cannot. I am the sovereign, and I have decided. Hana's voice rang with authority. This human showed me wisdom that 300 years of rule didn't teach me. If I'm going back to lead the Empire, I'm doing it my way, starting now. The commander looked like she wanted to argue, but she bowed her head. As you command. Hana looked at Daeho with hope and fear mixed together. Will you come? I know it's asking too much.
I know you have a life here.
But I need someone who will tell me the truth. Someone who sees me as a person, not a sovereign. I need a friend. Daeho thought about his small life on the station, fixing ships, eating bad food, going to bed alone every night. Then he thought about Hana, about to walk back into a prison of duty and loneliness. He thought about her tears on the observation deck when she talked about choice. Okay, he said. I'll come. Taeyang grabbed his arm. Are you crazy? You can't just leave with them. I can, and I will. Daeho smiled at his friend. Someone needs to make sure she's okay. Mireille stepped forward. If you're going to represent humanity in an alien empire, you better not make us look bad. I'll do my best. Hana's face lit up with the most beautiful smile Daeho had ever seen. She took his hand in hers. Thank you. For everything. As they walked toward the alien ship, Daeho looked back at the station one last time. He was leaving behind everything he knew, but he was walking toward something important. Maybe the most important thing he would ever do. Above them, the battle raged on, but Daeho and Hana walked together hand in hand toward whatever came next. The Velakara ship was nothing like human vessels. It didn't have corridors or rooms in any normal sense. The walls seemed alive, shifting and glowing with soft blue light. The floor adjusted itself under Daeho's feet, making every step feel weightless. He couldn't tell if they were moving or standing still. Try not to touch anything, Kyung warned as she led them deeper into the ship. The ship responds to Velakara neural patterns. To you, it might do unexpected things. Daeho kept his hands close to his body. Around them, alien crew members stopped their work to stare at Hana. Some bowed. Others looked angry. The tension was so thick he could almost taste it. They reached what must have been the bridge. A vast circular room with walls that showed the space outside from every angle. It was like standing in the middle of nothing, surrounded by stars and the burning wreckage of destroyed ships. The commander stood at the center, giving orders in a language that sounded like music and thunder combined. When she saw Hana, she stopped and bowed deeply. Sovereign, we've received word from the homeworld. High Arbiter 1 is demanding your immediate return to face judgment for abandoning your duties. Judgment? Hana's voice was cold. He has no authority to judge the sovereign. He claims you forfeited your right to rule by leaving. Half the High Council supports him. The other half demands your return to restore order. The commander hesitated. Sovereign, the Empire is splitting apart. Systems are declaring independence. Trade has collapsed. There have been riots on 17 major worlds. And Wan is using the chaos to gather military support. Daeho watched Hana's face. She looked tired and small, nothing like the powerful queen everyone said she was. He stepped closer to her. What do you want to do? What I want doesn't matter anymore. What matters is stopping a war. That's not true, Daeho said quietly. What you want always matters. That's what makes you different from a machine. That's what makes you human. Several aliens made shocked sounds. Kyung smiled sadly. The commander looked like Daeho had just insulted her entire species. The sovereign is not human, the commander said stiffly. She is Velakara. She is a person, Daeho interrupted. And people deserve to have their wants and needs respected. Even queens. The commander opened her mouth to argue, but Hana held up her hand. Enough, Commander Bora, I need information. Show me the current state of the Empire. The room changed. The walls stopped showing space and instead displayed maps and charts and streams of data that moved too fast for Daiho to follow. But Hana stood in the center of it all, her eyes moving rapidly as she absorbed impossible amounts of information. System 4127 has declared neutrality, she said, pointing at a section of the map. System 2891 is blockading its borders. The outer territories are refusing to send resources to the core worlds. She turned to Kyung. This is worse than you told me. It got worse in the last week, Kyung admitted. One accelerated his plans when he learned you were found. He's claiming you've been contaminated by human influence, that you're not fit to rule anymore. Contaminated? Daiho felt anger rise in his chest. That's actually accurate from their perspective, Hana said. She looked at Daiho with sad eyes. I am contaminated. I've learned things that go against everything the sovereign is supposed to be. I've learned that there's more to life than duty. That individuals matter more than systems. That sometimes the illogical choice is the right choice. The wall shifted again, showing a video. A large alien in elaborate robes stood on a platform addressing a massive crowd. This must be one. His voice boomed with false sincerity. The sovereign has abandoned us in our time of need. She has fled to live among primitives, learning their weak and emotional ways. She has forgotten that she was made to serve the Empire, not herself. I say to you now, the sovereign has failed us. The Empire needs strong leadership. The Empire needs... Hana made a gesture and the video stopped. He's good. I'll give him that. He knows exactly what people want to hear. He's lying, Commander Bora said. The sovereign has never failed the Empire. Haven't I? Hana turned to face her. I did abandon you. I ran away because I couldn't handle the pressure anymore. Every decision I made meant life or death for millions. Every policy I wrote shaped the lives of trillions. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. I couldn't be alone with my thoughts without wanting to scream. So yes, I failed. I broke under the weight. The room was silent. Even Daiho didn't know what to say. But then a small voice spoke up. It was Kyung. You didn't break, you bent. And bending means you're flexible, not weak. A rigid thing breaks. A flexible thing survives. Hana smiled at her. When did you become a philosopher? I had a good teacher. Daiho cleared his throat. Can I ask something? This whole empire, all these trillions of people, did anyone ever ask Hana if she wanted to rule them? Or did they just assume she would because that's what she was made for? The aliens all looked at him like he'd asked why water was wet. Commander Bora answered slowly, as if explaining something to a child. The sovereign was created to rule. That is her function. Her purpose. Asking if she wants to rule is like asking if a sun wants to shine. But she's not a sun. She's a person, and people should get to choose their own purpose. That is a very human perspective. Yeah, it is. Daiho looked at Hana. And maybe that's what your empire needs right now. A human perspective. An alarm blared through the ship. Commander Bora rushed to a control panel. We're being hailed. It's High Arbiter 1's flagship. He wants to speak to the Sovereign. Hana straightened her shoulders. Put him through. The wall showed Juan's face, larger than life. Up close, Daiho could see his eyes were calculating and cold. This was a man who smiled while planning murder. Sovereign Hana, Juan said, his voice dripping with false respect. How good to see you're alive and well. The Empire has been so worried. Skip the performance, Juan. We both know why you're here. Juan's smile didn't waver. I'm here to escort you home safely. There are dangerous elements who might try to harm you. You've been through a traumatic experience, influenced by primitive species. But don't worry. We have doctors who can help restore your proper thinking. Restore. Hana's voice dropped dangerously low. You mean reprogram? You want to turn me back into an obedient machine. I want to help you remember your duty, your purpose. You are the sovereign. You don't get to run away and play at being normal. One's eyes shifted to Daiho. And I see you've brought home a pet human. How quaint. Don't worry, we'll find a nice zoo for it. Daiho felt Hana tense beside him. When she spoke, her voice could have frozen stars. You will speak about him with respect. He is my advisor and my guest. One laughed. Advisor? You're taking advice from a primitive who's barely mastered space travel? This is exactly why you're unfit to rule. You've lost all sense of proportion. Or maybe I've finally gained some perspective. Tell me one. In your quest for power, have you ever once asked what the people of the Empire actually want? The people want order, security, strong leadership, things you clearly cannot provide. The people want someone who sees them as individuals, not statistics. Someone who understands that every life matters, no matter how small. Hana took a step closer to the screen. You want to rule the Empire? Fine. Challenge me for the throne properly. Call a council of decision. Let the people choose between your vision and mine. One smile faltered. That's not how this works. The sovereign does now. I'm changing the rules. Or are you afraid the people might not choose you? For just a moment, one's mask slipped. Pure hatred showed in his eyes. Then the smile returned, colder than before. Very well. A council of decision it is. But when you lose, when the Empire rejects your contaminated worldview, you will accept the consequences, including rehabilitation. And when I win, you'll stand trial for the executions you've ordered. One's smile widened. We'll see who wins, Sovereign. We'll see. The screen went dark. Commander Bora looked shocked. Sovereign, a council of decision hasn't been called in 3,000 years. You'll have to present your entire vision for the Empire before the High Council, the military command, and representatives from every major system. It will take months to prepare. We don't have months. The Empire is falling apart now. Hana turned to Kyung. How long would it take to gather the council? 2 weeks if we rush it. Then rush it. Send word to every system. The Sovereign is calling a council of decision. And this time, everyone gets to see who their leader really is. Kyung bowed and left to make arrangements. Commander Bora still looked worried. Sovereign, forgive me, but you've been away from the Empire for months. You're bringing a human advisor. You're talking about changing fundamental laws. This is going to be extremely difficult. I know, Hana said. She took Daeho's hand, but I'm not alone anymore, and that makes all the difference. They were given quarters to rest in before reaching the home world. Daeho's room was small but comfortable, with a window that showed the endless stars. He couldn't sleep. Everything was too much, too big, too important. A soft knock on the door. Hana entered, looking as tired as he felt.
Can I come in?
Of course. She sat on the edge of his bed. For El, the Velakara homeworld was called Valenia, and it took Daeho's breath away. The planet glowed blue and silver from space, covered in cities that looked like living crystal. Massive orbital structures connected the planet to its 3 moons. Ships moved between them in streams of light. This was the heart of an empire that spanned 1,000 worlds. 4 trillion people live here, Hana said quietly as their ship descended. More beings in one place than exist in all of human space. Daeho pressed his face against the window. The scale of it was impossible to understand. Buildings rose miles into the sky. Bridges connected structures that could hold entire cities. And everywhere, the blue glow of Velakara technology made everything look like a dream. How do you even govern something this big? He asked, very carefully, and with a lot of help. Hana looked tired. The Sovereign doesn't actually make every decision. Mostly I set policy direction and resolve disputes that can't be handled at lower levels. Or at least that's what I used to do. Commander Bora's voice came over the ship's speakers. We're approaching the Sovereign Spire. Prepare for landing. The Sovereign Spire was a tower that stretched from the planet's surface into orbit. It was miles wide and seemed to be made of solid light. As they got closer, Daeho realized it was covered in moving images, showing scenes from across the Empire. Births, deaths, celebrations, disasters, all flowing across the surface in an endless stream. It's beautiful, he breathed. It's a prison, Hana said. At least that's what it was for me. They landed in a bay at the tower's base. The moment the doors opened, Daeho was hit with sound and light and movement. Hundreds of Velakara waited, all talking at once. Some looked happy to see Hana. Others looked angry. Security forces kept them back behind barriers. Kyung appeared at their side. The council has been assembled. They're waiting in the Hall of Voices. But first you need to change into proper attire. I'm fine as I am, Hana said. Sovereign, please. There are traditions. Appearances matter. Hana sighed but nodded. She turned to Daeho. You'll need ceremonial clothes too. As my advisor, you're part of the official delegation. An hour later, Daeho found himself wearing robes that seemed to be made of liquid silver. They were surprisingly comfortable, but he felt ridiculous. Hana emerged wearing white garments that glowed softly, with a simple crown of light floating above her head. She looked every inch a queen. "You look beautiful," Deho said. Hana smiled sadly. "I look like what they want me to be. A symbol, not a person." They walked through corridors that defied physics. The walls showed scenes from Velakara history. Battles, discoveries, achievements spanning thousands of years. Other aliens walked past them, most bowing to Hana, some whispering behind their hands. The Hall of Voices was enormous. A circular chamber with seats rising in tiers all around, holding thousands of delegates. At the center was a raised platform where Hana and Juan would present their cases. Above everything, holographic displays showed the proceedings to billions watching across the empire. Deho took his seat in the advisors section, trying not to look as nervous as he felt. Beside him, Kyung squeezed his hand reassuringly. "Just remember," she whispered, "speak from the heart. That's all Hana needs from you." An ancient Velakara woman stood at the highest point in the hall. Her skin was pale blue, almost white, and her eyes held the weight of centuries. This was Elder Nari, the head of the High Council. "We gather today for a council of decision," her voice echoed through the hall. "For the first time in 3 millennia, the Empire questions whether the Sovereign should continue to rule. High Arbiter 1 has challenged Sovereign Hana, claiming she has abandoned her duties and betrayed the Empire. Each will present their vision. The Council will decide who leads us forward." One stood and walked to the center platform. He looked confident and powerful. When he spoke, his voice was warm and persuasive. "Members of the Council, people of the Empire, I come before you with a heavy heart. I have served the Sovereign faithfully for 200 years. I have watched her struggle with the weight of leadership, and I watched her break under that weight and flee to hide among primitives." Murmurs ran through the crowd. One continued, "The Sovereign is not evil. She is not a traitor. She is simply broken. The pressure of ruling trillions proved too much for her. She sought escape in the simple life of beings who don't understand the responsibilities we carry, and in doing so she has absorbed their weak philosophies." One gestured to Deho. "She even brings one of them here to our most sacred council. As if a human could understand the complexities of our empire. As if beings who have barely left their own world could advise us on matters spanning galaxies." Anger burned in Deho's chest, but Kyung held his arm, keeping him seated. "I propose we grant the Sovereign mercy," Juan said. "Let her retire peacefully. Let her live a quiet life where she can be happy, and let me take up the burden of leadership. I am strong where she is weak. I am decisive where she doubts. I will restore order to the Empire and return us to our former glory." Applause rang through parts of the hall. Not everyone, but enough to be worrying. One bowed and returned to his seat, looking satisfied. Elder Nari gestured to Hana. "The Sovereign may now present her defense." Hana stood slowly. She walked to the center platform and looked up at the thousands watching her. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she began, and her voice was quiet but clear. "High Arbiter 1 is right about several things. I did flee. I did abandon my post. I did seek refuge among humans. And yes, I was breaking under the pressure of this position." She paused. "But he's wrong about why. And he's wrong about what we should do about it." She turned in a slow circle, addressing every section of the hall. "For 300 years I have been the Sovereign. I have made decisions that shaped your lives. I chose which systems went to war and which made peace. I determined economic policies that made some worlds rich and others poor. I judged disputes between planets. I have held the power of life and death over trillions." Her voice grew stronger. "And in all that time, not once did anyone ask me what I thought. Not once did anyone care if I was tired or scared or lonely, because I wasn't seen as a person. I was seen as a tool, a machine that processed problems and output solutions." "That's what you were designed for," someone shouted from the crowd. "Yes," Hana said. "I was designed to be a slave. A beautiful, important, powerful slave. But still a slave. And I finally realized that no matter how important the work is, slavery is wrong." Shocked gasps echoed through the hall. One stood up, his face red. "This is exactly what I mean. She's been corrupted by human ideology. The Velakara Empire doesn't practice slavery, doesn't it?" Hana looked at him coldly. "What do you call forcing someone to work without consent? What do you call taking away someone's freedom for their entire life? What do you call creating a being specifically to serve others, with no choice in the matter?" Elder Nari spoke up. "The Sovereign was created with a purpose. That is not the same as slavery. Then let me ask you all a question, Hana said. If I had been given a choice, if someone had asked me at the moment of my creation whether I wanted this life, and I had said no, would you have accepted that? Would you have let me choose a different path? Silence filled the hall. The answer was obvious to everyone. No, they would not have. That's what I thought, Hana said softly. And that's why I ran. Not because I'm weak, not because I don't care about the Empire, but because I finally understood that a system built on the forced labor of even one person is unjust. Even if that person is me, even if that labor is ruling an empire. One stepped forward. So what do you propose? That we have no sovereign? That we return to the chaos that created the need for you in the first place? No, I propose something different. Something I learned from humans. Hana gestured to Daeho. He stood, his legs shaking, and walked to join her on the platform. Every eye in the hall fixed on him. This is Daeho, Hana said. He's a mechanic. He fixes ships. He has no power, no status, no special abilities. He's completely ordinary in every way that your society measures importance. But he taught me something that 300 years of rule never did. He taught me that every person, no matter how small or insignificant, has value. That every individual deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. And that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply be kind to a stranger. She took Daeho's hand. When I arrived at his station claiming to be a refugee, he didn't see a tool or a symbol. He saw a person who needed help. And he helped me, expecting nothing in return. That's humanity's strength. Not their technology or their military power. Their compassion. One laughed mockingly. And how does compassion help us govern an empire of trillions? By reminding us why we govern at all, Hana said. We don't rule for abstract concepts like order or efficiency. We rule to serve the people. Every individual person, with their own dreams and hopes and fears. If we forget that, if we see people as just numbers in a report, then we've already failed. She turned back to Elder Nari. I'm not asking to be released from my duties. I'm asking for those duties to be changed. I will continue to serve as sovereign, but not as a slave. I will rule by choice, not by design. And I will. Part 6. The night after the council session, Daeho couldn't sleep. He stood on the balcony of their quarters high in the sovereign spire, looking down at the city below. Millions of lights moved in patterns he couldn't understand. This world was so alien, so vast that he felt like a grain of sand trying to understand an ocean. Can't sleep either? Hana's voice came from behind him. He turned to see her standing in the doorway, still wearing her ceremonial robes. The crown of light was gone, making her look more like the woman he'd met on the station. More like his friend. I keep thinking about what you said in there, Daeho admitted, about how you've been a slave your whole life. I never thought about it that way before. Hana came to stand beside him. Most people don't. When slavery looks beautiful and serves a good purpose, it's easy to ignore. But it's still slavery. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Hana spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Daeho, I need to tell you something about what might happen tomorrow. What do you mean? If the council decides against me, if they choose one, she took a deep breath. They won't just remove me from power. They'll decommission me, destroy me. And they'll probably kill everyone who helped me escape, including Kyung and including you. Daeho felt cold. They wouldn't dare. I'm a human citizen. That would cause a war between our species. They would claim you were a spy, that you corrupted me. They would make it look justified. Hana turned to face him, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry. I never should have brought you here. I was selfish. I just wanted someone on my side, and now you're going to die because of me. Hey. Daeho took her hands. First of all, I chose to come. You didn't force me. Second, we're not dead yet. And third, even if the worst happens, I don't regret coming. What you're fighting for, what you said in that hall, that was important. That was worth it. How can you say that? Your life is... My life was fixing broken ships on a forgotten station. That's not nothing, but it's not this either. This is something that matters. You matter. He smiled at her. Besides, I have faith. I saw those people's faces today. You got through to them. They were listening. Before Hana could respond, alarms blared through the tower. Emergency lights flashed red. Kyung burst onto the balcony, her face pale with fear. We have a problem. One's forces are moving. He's not waiting for the council's decision. He's launching a coup. Through the windows, Daeho could see ships rising from military installations. Explosions lit up the night sky as fighting broke out in the streets below. One wasn't taking any chances. He was going to seize power by force. Commander Bora appeared with a squad of guards. Sovereign, we need to get you to a secure location immediately. What about the council? Hana demanded. What about Elder Nari? Elder Nari and the Loyalist Council members are being evacuated to the orbital stations. But Juan's forces control most of the ground installations. He's broadcasting across all channels, declaring you unfit to rule and claiming he's restoring order. They ran through the tower's corridors as the building shook from nearby explosions. Other residents fled in panic. Through windows, Deho saw the beautiful city burning. People were dying down there because of a power struggle they probably didn't even understand. This is insane, he shouted over the noise. He's destroying the Empire to save it? He doesn't care about the Empire, Kyung said as they ran. He only cares about power. This is what he wanted all along. Chaos that he could use as an excuse to seize control. They reached a hangar where a small ship waited. But before they could board, the hangar doors exploded inward. Soldiers in black armor poured through, weapons raised. At their head was One himself, no longer wearing his counselor robes, but instead dressed in military gear. Going somewhere, Sovereign? His smile was cold and triumphant. I'm afraid I can't allow that. You're under arrest for treason against the Empire. Treason? Hana's voice rang with fury. You're the one attacking our own people. I'm restoring order from the chaos you created. Your little speech yesterday infected the population with dangerous ideas. Already there are riots on 17 worlds. People are demanding rights and choices and all sorts of nonsense that will tear the Empire apart. I'm simply doing what you were too weak to do. I'm keeping control. Commander Bora and her guards raised their weapons, but they were outnumbered 10-1. One soldier surrounded them completely. Stand down, Commander, One ordered. There's no need for your people to die defending a failed sovereign. She's not failed, Bora said firmly. She's the rightful ruler. She's a broken machine that learned to feel things it shouldn't. And now I'm going to have her shut down and start fresh with a proper sovereign. One without emotions or doubts or ridiculous ideas about individual dignity. Hana stepped forward, placing herself between One and her friends. Let them go. This is between you and me. Oh, I intend to let most of them go, but not the human. One's eyes fixed on Deho with hatred. He's the poison that infected you. He needs to be eliminated as an example of what happens when lesser species try to influence Velakara affairs. Touch him and You'll what? One laughed. You have no power here anymore. You gave it all up when you decided feelings were more important than duty. Deho stepped forward before anyone could stop him. His heart pounded, but his voice was steady. You're wrong about everything. Hana didn't give up power. She found the courage to use it differently. And you know what? You're scared. You're terrified because deep down you know she's right. One's face darkened with rage. Shut your mouth, primitive. No, because you need to hear this. You think strength is about control and domination, but real strength is about lifting people up, not pushing them down. Hana showed more courage in admitting she was lonely than you've shown in your entire life. Guards, seize that human. Every person down there in your city, every soldier in your army, every citizen in your empire. They're individuals with their own thoughts and dreams and hopes, and you treat them like pieces on a game board. That's not strength. That's weakness. Because you're so afraid of what people might do with freedom that you'd rather keep them in chains. One pulled out a weapon and pointed it at Deho. I'm going to enjoy killing you personally. Before he could fire, the entire building shook with a massive explosion. The lights went out. In the darkness, Deho heard the sound of weapons fire and shouting. When emergency lights came back on seconds later, the situation had changed completely. More soldiers poured into the hangar, but these wore different colors. At their head was Elder Nari herself, moving with surprising speed for someone so ancient. Behind her came hundreds of civilians armed with whatever they could find. Stand down, One, Elder Nari commanded. Your coup has failed. One looked around wildly. What? How did you? You made a crucial mistake. You assumed the people would follow whoever held the most guns, but that human boy's speech yesterday spread across the Empire faster than your troops could move. People heard what the Sovereign said. And they heard what you said. And they chose her. Through the hangar doors, Deho could see a massive crowd gathering, thousands of Velakara filling the streets chanting Hana's name. They carried signs and banners. Some wept with emotion. They had come to defend their sovereign. This is madness, One screamed. They're throwing away order for sentiment. No, Hana said quietly. They're choosing to be treated as people instead of property. They're choosing dignity over control. They're choosing hope. Elder Nari stepped closer to Juan. The council has made its decision. We find in favor of Sovereign Hana. Not because she's perfect, but because she's right. It's time for the Empire to change. And you, Juan, will stand trial for your crimes. Juan's soldiers lowered their weapons. Some looked relieved. Others looked confused. But none of them wanted to fire on the crowd of civilians who now filled every space. Juan himself looked like a man watching his entire world collapse. You're all fools. This empire won't last a decade with your soft policies. You'll see. You'll come crawling back begging for strong leadership. Perhaps, Elder Nari said. Or perhaps we'll build something better. Something where strength comes from unity instead of fear. Take him away. As Juan was led away in restraints, the crowd outside began cheering. The sound was deafening. Thousands of voices raised in celebration. Hana looked overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face. Kyung hugged her tightly. You did it. You actually changed their minds. We did it, Hana corrected, pulling Daeho into the embrace. None of this would have happened without you. Elder Nari approached them, her ancient eyes twinkling. I must admit I've served 7 sovereigns in my life, and you are by far the most unusual. But perhaps that's what we needed, someone unusual enough to see what we all stopped seeing long ago. What's that? Hana asked. That we lost our way, that efficiency and order became more important than the people we were supposed to serve. Your human friend reminded us of something we forgot. She smiled at Daeho. That every individual matters, even a simple mechanic from a forgotten station. What happens now? Daeho asked. Now we rebuild. But differently this time. The sovereign will remain, but with limits and checks on her power. She'll work with councils who can challenge her decisions. She'll serve the people, but the people will also have a say in how they're governed. 6 months later, Daeho stood in the observation deck of the Sovereign Spire, watching ships come and go from the orbital platforms. The view never got old. Each ship represented a story, people traveling between worlds for reasons he could only imagine. Trade, family, adventure, escape. The Empire was full of life in a way that still amazed him. There you are. Hana's voice came from behind him. She looked tired but happy, wearing simple clothes instead of her ceremonial robes. That had been one of her first changes. The sovereign didn't need to look like a distant symbol all the time. Sometimes she could just be a person. How did the meeting go? Daeho asked. Long, complicated, but good, I think. Hana came to stand beside him. We're establishing the first elected councils on 12 worlds. They'll have real power to make local decisions without waiting for approval from the central government. It's a start. That's amazing. It's terrifying, Hana corrected with a smile. What if they make mistakes? What if they choose badly? Then they'll learn and do better next time. That's what freedom means. The right to make your own mistakes and grow from them. Hana leaned against the railing with a sigh. Sometimes I still wonder if I did the right thing. The Empire was stable before. Now everything is changing so fast. There are protests on some worlds. Debates that turn into arguments. Some systems want more independence, others want to keep the old ways. That's not chaos, Daeho said. That's democracy. It's messy and loud and sometimes frustrating, but it's better than silence enforced by fear. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Over the past months, they had fallen into an easy friendship. Daeho served as Hana's human advisor, but more importantly, he was her friend, someone who treated her like a person first and a queen second. A small figure came running down the corridor. It was Sora, the young girl from Frontier Station 17. After the coup attempt, Hana had arranged for several families from the station to move to the capital. She wanted to stay connected to the place where she first learned what freedom felt like. Hana, Daeho, Sora called out, her face bright with excitement. She had adapted quickly to life in the Empire, learning the language and making friends with Velikara children. Look what I made in art class. She held up a painting. It showed Frontier Station 17, small and simple, floating among the stars. Above it, she had painted the massive Velikara ships in blues and silvers. But in the center, connecting them, was a golden bridge made of tiny figures holding hands. It's beautiful, Hana said, kneeling down to examine it closely. What does the bridge represent? It's all the people who helped you, Sora explained proudly. You and Daeho and Kyung and Commander Bora and Elder Nari and everyone else. My teacher says that one person can't change the world, but lots of people working together can. Hana's eyes filled with tears. Your teacher is very wise. Can I keep this? I made it for you. Sora hugged her tightly, then ran off to continue her exploration of the tower. Deho watched Hana carefully place the painting on a nearby table. You okay? Better than okay. I was just thinking about how different things are now. 6 months ago, I thought my only choices were to be a slave or to run away. I never imagined there could be a third option. What's that? Being a leader who serves by choice, who makes mistakes and admits them, who asks for help when she needs it, who treats her position as a responsibility, not a prison. Hana looked at him with deep gratitude. You gave me that, the courage to believe it was possible. I didn't give you anything. You already had the courage. You just needed someone to remind you it was there. Kyung appeared at the end of the corridor, her expression serious. Sovereign, we have a situation. The delegates from the outer territories have arrived. They're requesting an immediate audience. Hana straightened, slipping back into her role. What do they want? Independence. Complete separation from the Empire. They say the changes you're making don't go far enough. They want total autonomy. Daiho saw worry flash across Hana's face. This was the challenge she had been dreading. If the Empire started breaking apart into independent states, it could lead to conflicts and wars. But if she refused their request, she would be no better than one, using force to maintain control. Gather the council, Hana said after a moment. All of them, including the human delegation. This is too important for me to decide alone. An hour later, they sat in the council chamber. It was smaller than the Hall of Voices, designed for working sessions rather than grand speeches. Around the table sat representatives from dozens of worlds, species, and factions. The Velikara no longer made all the decisions alone. The Outer Territory delegates presented their case. They were 3 beings from different species, all living in the frontier regions of the Empire. They spoke about feeling ignored, about resources flowing to the core worlds while they struggled, about having no real say in decisions that affected their lives. The reforms you've made are good, their leader said, a tall being with crystalline skin. But they don't go far enough. We want complete self-governance. We want to be allies with the Empire, not subjects of it. Hana listened carefully, asking questions, seeking to understand their perspective. Deho watched her with pride. This was so different from the old way, where the sovereign simply decided and everyone obeyed. Elder Nari spoke up. If we allow systems to leave freely, the entire empire could dissolve. We would lose the unity that has kept peace for thousands of years. But what kind of unity? Hana asked. Unity based on force or unity based on choice? If systems stay only because they're afraid to leave, is that really unity at all? The debate went on for hours. Some council members argued for keeping the empire together at any cost. Others supported the outer territory's right to choose. Deho stayed quiet, knowing this wasn't his decision to make. But when Hana looked at him questioningly, he nodded encouragement. Finally, Hana stood. I have a proposal. We create a new framework. Systems can choose to be full members of the Empire, accepting all responsibilities and benefits, or they can choose to be independent allies with treaties for trade and mutual defense but governing themselves completely. Or they can choose something in between. That's unprecedented, someone objected. How would we maintain order? Through cooperation, not control. Through treaties and agreements that respect everyone's autonomy. It will be complicated, yes, but it will be honest. No one will be forced to stay where they don't want to be. The crystalline delegate looked shocked. You would really let us leave? Just like that? I would give you the choice, Hana corrected. Freedom means the right to choose your own path, even if that path leads away from me, even if it makes things harder for the Empire. Because the alternative is to become what one wanted, a ruler who keeps power through fear and force. Silence filled the room. Then Elder Nari began to laugh. It was a sound of pure delight. 300 years I waited for a sovereign with the wisdom to say those words. I was beginning to think I would never hear them. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it passed. The Empire would offer systems the choice. Some would leave, some would stay, and some would negotiate new relationships. It was messy and uncertain, but it was right. As the council adjourned, the crystalline delegate approached Hana. Sovereign, I want you to know something. We came here expecting to fight for our freedom. Instead, you simply gave it to us. That changes everything. We may choose to remain as allies after all, not because we have to, but because we want to, because we respect what you're trying to build here." After they left, Hana collapsed into a chair. "That was the hardest decision I've ever made." "But you made it," Kyung said proudly. "You chose principle over power." "I chose what I learned from humans," Hana said, looking at Daeho. "That respect is more powerful than control. That trust is stronger than fear. That the only loyalty worth having is loyalty freely given." Commander Bora entered, looking concerned. "Sovereign, we're receiving reports from across the Empire. Your decision is spreading. Already there are celebrations on the outer worlds. But there's also resistance from the conservative factions. Some military units are refusing orders, saying you're destroying the Empire." "Let me speak to them," Hana said, standing, not as a command but as a conversation. "Maybe if they understand why I'm doing this, they'll see it's not destruction, it's transformation." Over the next weeks, Hana traveled to different worlds, speaking with people directly. She visited military bases and spoke to soldiers who thought she was weak. She went to conservative worlds and listened to their fears about change. She didn't always convince them, but she always treated them with respect. Daeho accompanied her on many of these trips. He saw how exhausting it was, how much emotional labor it took to constantly explain and justify and discuss. But he also saw how it was working. Slowly, minds were changing. People who met Hana in person found it hard to see her as a threat. They saw her as someone genuinely trying to do right by everyone. One evening, they returned to the capital exhausted. Hana had spent 10 hours in meetings with a planetary council that feared losing their traditional way of life. She had listened to,